the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
Welcome, everybody. We have a great weekend. Welcome to the Brook Show, Sunday afternoon. All right. Got a lot to cover today. And thank you for joining me here to do so. So today we're going to talk more politics. We're going to talk about a little bit about Biden. Biden's first 100 days. I don't have a lot to say about Biden's first 100 days. It's kind of obvious. I don't have any particular insight. But then I want to talk about what I think is more interesting, which is capitalism, tradition, and conservatives, and why conservatives can never be pro-capitalist, why they always must fail in their efforts to be capitalist. So we'll talk about that. I'm gonna have a little bit of help in discussing that topic. I've got a video of Lauren Southern. I don't know if you guys remember Lauren Southern. She was big a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. She was big in the alt-right movement. Anyway, she's become, I think, more traditional conservative since then. I think she's abandoned her alt-right roots. And we're going to show a video of her. She's actually going to agree with me. She's going to agree with me. Not really, but it'll be interesting. She lives in Australia now. I have no idea where she lives, and I can't say I really care. I'm not a fan at all, as you will see. But we'll watch a video from her with commentary from me. And it's funny because I came up with this idea of capitalism versus tradition, reading an article about trying to explain what's going on in the Republican Party right now, and I had the topic, I had the whole idea of what I wanted to say and everything, and then this morning, Christian sent me this video of Lauren Southern, and I open it up, and it's like perfect because she's talking on exactly what I was going to talk about, and she reinforces it. Brownie says she's hot, though. No, not when she opens her mouth. The hotness dissipates. Whatever hotness there is dissipates. And in this video, the way she's made up and the way she's just presenting, I don't know, no hot vibes. I get no hot vibes from her. So, no, I get more weirdness than hot from her. All right, so let's jump in. And of course, don't forget, we don't have Alejandrina on today. I think she doesn't do Sundays. I think Sunday is family time for her, so she doesn't come to work. I assume we dock her pay for that. So I have nobody keeping track of the super chat. I have nobody urging you guys to support. I have nobody kind of Cook says he was going to do a rebuttal to the Lauren Southern video. Sorry, Cook. Christian is just faster than you, not me. I had no idea there was such a video. I didn't know she was still doing stuff. So you're going to have a conversation with Christian because he was faster than you this time. So anyway, I don't have anybody keeping track of Super Chat. I don't think I need anybody to keep track right now of Super Chat because there's just nothing there. But remember that our goal is $400 a show. So it would be great if you guys ask some questions with some big dollar amounts, and so that we can get rolling. And hopefully we'll pick up some more listeners as we go through this and pick up some contributions, some support for the show. So let's start with Biden. It is 100 days. 100 days is kind of a traditional, talk about tradition. It's kind of a traditional benchmark. The first 100 days, Congress usually gives a new president a break, usually views more favorable. his agenda. It's the first 100 days is when a new administration kind of puts their people into different positions, into different departments, where the regulatory agencies start getting manned. It takes a lot longer these days to fill in all the different cabinet positions. I think cabinet is all full, but all the different next level positions. I mean, Trump never filled them all up. He lagged from the beginning, but it just takes a while, particularly with Congress, and it's just a lot of, government is so big today and so complex, and it just takes a while to get everybody in place. That's just the nature of it. Biden has come out, as president, super ambitious, much more ambitious than I expected. I think he took his victory as a, he's old, he's seen it all, he's in a sense got nothing to lose. Why not go for the fences? Why not swing at everything and try to get home runs? Who knows if he's even going to run for a second term? So why not get as much done? He has, I think, more of a sense of history than maybe younger presidents do because of how old he is and how long he's been in Congress, how long he's been in politics. I mean, God, he's been in politics forever. That should have disqualified him from president. Just that. He is also. So he's hired a lot of ambitious people from the left. He's got a list of agenda items of kind of all the stuff the leftists wish they could have gotten done over the last 50 to 100 years, or 20 to 50 years. All the stuff they wish they could have done under Obama. One of the things I think he learned from the Obama administration is that in a midterm, you can lose the edge, right? Obama had a Democratic Senate and a Democratic House for 2 years, and then the House flipped on him, and that was it. His agenda was over. He couldn't get anything done after that. So I think Biden is also trying to get as much done in the first 2 years as possible, right? He's trying to spend as much money, grow government as big as possible. Get new programs instituted as fast as possible. He's got a Democratic House in particular, but Senate as well, that is far to the left of him. So they are pushing, and they're eager to get stuff done. And shockingly enough, Trump managed to lose the Senate to them. So they actually have control of the Senate, but it's barely, right? It's 50-50. So they need every single Democrat to vote with them, which is going to be hard. But the agenda they've come up with is far more aggressive. He's not just cruising. He wants to get stuff done. He wants to get an agenda through. The other thing that I think is motivating him is, I think if you look at surveys of the American public, if you look at Trump's 4 years, I think the American public has no problem with growing government. The American public doesn't seem to care about bigger government, more spending, more intervention, more social programs, more government involvement in every aspect of the economy and every aspect of our lives. Both candidates in the last election, both Trump and Biden, were big government candidates, and turnout was historically high. And if you look survey after survey after survey, the programs he wants to suggest, anywhere from infrastructure to free community college to free kindergarten to free all kinds of stuff. People like that stuff. There is no real grassroots, large-scale opposition to dramatic growth in government. And Republicans have lost the claim for that because Trump was a big government Republican. So, and he got more votes than any Republican ever got. So the Republican Party is now a Republican Party that's a big government Republican Party. So there's a sense in which even, there's a real sense in which Republicans in the Senate, Republicans in the House are probably not going to fight this because on what grounds? On what grounds? These are programs that their constituents, for the most part, approve of. I mean, the Republican Party, and we'll talk about this when we talk about conservatives, Republican Party has really become a political party that is primarily focused on the culture war, which it has lost for all intents and purposes, and is completely ignoring and completely has no fight in them to fight the economic rights, the economic growth of government kind of agenda. They have no interest in it. Yeah, they don't want to raise taxes. They want to cut taxes. But when it comes to actual government programs, actual growth of government, actual government spending, there's no motivation. I mean, there was a lot of criticism. So one of Biden's main achievement, I guess, achievement in quotes, everything, achievement is here very much in quotes. But one of the things he got done in the first 100 days is passed the stimulus bill, $1.9 trillion of stimulus that had very little to do with COVID, had a lot of different social programs in it, had a lot of institutionalized stuff that's going to be there forever, not a one-time stimulus to the economy and let's go. And nobody challenged it. I mean, Republicans voted against it, but nobody really went out there. There was no big campaign. There was no appeal to the American people. There's no rallying, the old Tea Party to go out into the streets against the massive growth of government and against the infringement, the massive redistribution of wealth and all these new social programs and everything else that the Democrats wanted. Basically, the Republicans were busy fighting over Dr. Seuss. And again, the Republicans were too busy losing the culture war to bother with the size, the scope of government, which traditionally has been what they've been, at least as an opposition party, best at, is slowing down the Democrats' attempts to completely, dominate, to grow government to the point where, it controls all. So they're useless, hopeless. And that's, I think, what Biden is counting on, that the Republicans at this point are completely useless and pathetic. And I didn't expect them to be this bad, but they really are really bad. I mean, in opposition to the minimum wage, which it didn't pass because of Democrats, not because of Republicans, because a Democratic senator from Arizona said she wouldn't vote for it. But Republicans were proposing their own proposals to provide minimum wage, whether it was Mitt Romney, whether it was Josh Hawley. I think what we saw with the stimulus package, $1.9 trillion, with no opposition, nothing. I mean, Republicans basically concluded that the American people wanted this. Remember, it was Trump who argued that the check should be $2,000, not the original $600. They basically argued that Republicans figured that their constituents wanted this, so they're not going to fight it. And really, all the energy in the Republican Party right now is about breaking up big tech. It's about attacking capitalism. It's about using antitrust. And it's about the culture wars. It's about woke culture. It's about penalizing corporations for being too woke. That's where the energy is. That's where the excitement is. And they can't bother with the growth of government. And Biden wants to grow it on steroids. Unbelievable. The trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that State of the Union addresses are the most boring speeches one can imagine. It's basically a list of all the wishes and all the things that government is going to do for you. All the ways government is going to help you. All the ways government is going to take from some, not to be mentioned. Well, the Democrats like to mention taking from the rich and the corporation, as if there is such a thing, and hand it out to all kinds of constituencies. And nobody bothers in states of the unions actually doing the math and figuring out whether all these tax increases actually pay for any of this. It doesn't matter. Just goodies here, goodies there, throw it over here, throw it over there. Just spread it around. Get as many people as you can. And it's just laundry lists. Pathetic, disgusting, ridiculous, boring laundry lists of things. And Biden's list, I think, was the most ambitious list that I've seen from any president. I mean, one could only wish that Republicans, in an effort to limit government, were this ambitious. Now, he's not going to get everything he wants, but at least if you set the goal way over there, a big, humongous goal, you might achieve some of it. If you set the goals very small, if you achieve some of it, it's small. Republicans, presidents set the goals very small when it comes at least to the issue of limited government. Yeah, Biden is a moderate. Yeah. This is moderate, and he's not going to get any of this passed, but he is appeasing his left. And look, I did not expect, and I said this at the time, I did not expect the Republicans to lose 2 Senate seats in, of all places in the world, Georgia. That took skill. That took ability. That took a unique form of suicide that only somebody could, like Trump, could pull off. So yeah, Biden would have been dramatically moderated if he'd have to deal with a Republican Senate, even if it was 51-49. Yeah, stolen seats. That's the excuse to people who won't accept that Trump is a loser. Everything is cheated. I mean, he's a loser even if they were stolen, because if he was that smart, he was that clever, he was that good, how come he didn't prevent them from stealing the seats? Stolen seats. Man, you guys are bad losers. This is exactly the kind of attitude of he can do no wrong that I've argued over and over and over again, that too many of you engage in that kind of mindless attitude, right? Not only was the presidential thing was stolen, the 2 Senate seats in Georgia were also stolen. After they'd learned all the stuff from the presidential thing, the Republicans still were so dumb and stupid and pathetic and incompetent that they allowed 2 more to be stolen. Jonathan says, here's to the positive shoes. I didn't know I have positive shoes. I assume he meant shows. A philosophy for living happily on earth. Yes, I will be back to the positive shows very, very soon. I'm testing out the waters to see what shows under this new regime get more viewers, and we will see. I'll be able to make a definitive conclusion in the next few days. We've all got positive shoes. I like that. So Biden is going for it. He's going for everything the Democrats have wanted. He hasn't gone for Medicare for all because I don't think he actually wants Medicare for all and never run on Medicare for all. But he might still, in trying to appease the left, knowing that he won't actually get it because there are enough Democratic senators who don't want Medicare for all for him not to be able to pass. And he knows he won't get everything that he wants. But think about this, a multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure bill that just seems to be growing and growing and growing, where over half of it is not even infrastructure. Right? And we will see, of course, where it all ends up and what Republicans are willing to compromise with in order to get something passed. Good news today was that, just on the political side, the good news today was that Senator Manchin, said he would not vote for statehood for Washington, D.C. So there's a big item on the Democratic agenda, which it looks like they will not get. They will not get. Right? Yeah, Biden is a moderate, but one of the features of being a moderate is that you don't really have a position. You don't have to, you actually don't have to, you're not passionate about anything. You're not committed to anything. You're not invested in anything, right? So the whole point of a moderate is that you're easily swayed. You're easily swayed by those who have louder voices, who are more committed, who are willing to fight. And this relates to what I talked about yesterday. The fact is the left is much more passionate, much more in the streets, much more engaged in politics than the moderates are or than the Republicans are. Right? And therefore, it's not, it's obvious that a moderate will succumb to whoever's got the energy behind him. Now, the Overton window from this perspective is shifted way to the left on economic issues, but it was shifted. It wasn't shifted by the Democrats. The Overton window was shifted to the left on economic issues by Trump. It was shifted to the left by Trump by being in America, quote, first, because of tariffs, because of his attempt to kind of control corporations, because of his attack on American business, because of his attempt and willingness in the Justice Department under him to file antitrust lawsuits against big tech, and generally the no problem in signing spending bills that grew bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the Republicans under Trump shifted the Overton window, the window of what is accepted when it comes to the role and size of government, so far to the left that now it's almost impossible for them to move it to the right. Because to move it to the right takes them outside what they have established is their position when it comes to the role of government in the economy. Right? So it's exactly Trumpism that has allowed the Overton window to shift so far to the left. It's exactly Trumpism on economic role of government issues. And this is why I warned you of Trump from the beginning. Because the real damage he did is not in the policies he did on a day-to-day basis. The real damage is the shift in attitude now in the entire Republican Party, where government should be involved, where government does need to be big, where government does need to control the economy, where government does need to be involved in breaking up companies and in regulating it, in controlling, in managing the economy. It's not a shift away from Trump. It's an embrace of Trump. Indeed, one of Biden's things that he's done over the first 100 days, which is quite amazing and very little commented on, is that he has embraced in trade policy the America First label. He's completely embraced it. He's keeping tariffs, not just to China, but throughout. He is keeping the Buy America and doubling up. He's doubling up on the Buy America. He's doubling up on bringing manufacturing home. He's doubling up on much of Trump's domestic agenda, even on immigration. While Biden has promised, though, we're going to expand immigration, we're going to expand refugee stuff. So far, he hasn't. but primarily on trade and in the relationship with business, and the Justice Department going after business for antitrust, Biden has embraced the Trumpist agenda. And that's the sense in which Trump shifted the Overton window towards the left in a dramatic way, towards statism, if you will, towards an increased role in the state when it comes to our lives, particularly when it comes to our economic lives. Under Obama and under Clinton, Republicans were advocates of shrinking the welfare state. That's why we got welfare reform under Clinton. They were advocates of smaller government. I mean, everybody criticizes Paul Ryan, but under Obama, Paul Ryan's budgets shrunk government. There was even one budget that Paul Ryan passed in the House. Right? The Paul Ryan passed in the House where Medicare was going to be voucherized. One of the best ideas to come out of a Republican in decades. There was real energy about entitlement reform. There was real energy about shrinking the size of government. Up until 2016, the Republican Party, at least some of it, was energized around limited government, returning to Founding Fathers' ideas, and finding ways to reform entitlements in ways that did not hamper and destroy and bankrupt the United States. That Republican Party is dead. It's finished. Trump killed it, and it's gone. I have no idea where it is, and I don't think you're gonna find it. I don't think you're gonna find it. Yeah, Andrew says Paul Ryan being run out of D.C. was a bad sign for the Republican Party. And it's not just that he was run out of D.C., it was the manner in which he was run out of D.C. Now, I am very, very critical of Paul Ryan on a lot of different things, because while he often said the right things, he was good in the opposition. As soon as he was in power, he caved. And he constantly caved. He constantly, under Bush, he caved. He was a compromiser, constantly compromising. But he was smarter than almost anybody else in Washington, D.C. And he had some really good ideas, which nobody else has. All right, so let's see what Biden, I mean, the real key is how much of this agenda Biden can actually get through Congress. The key to that is going to be the degree to which Republicans are willing to act as a opposition party, not just vote against, but actually actively engage the American public in communicating their opposition and rallying them towards an opposition, as they did, for example, around Obamacare. They need to find that kind of an issue to do it. But, I despise John Boehner. John Boehner was the epitome of a Republican who did nothing, stood for nothing, had no ideas. He was a complete politician in the worst sense of the word. All right, so let's talk about, I want to talk about a little bit about conservatives, tradition, and capitalism. And I was reading an article. I can't remember where it was exactly. By the way, if you want your question answered quickly, rather than waiting to the end, which is what I'm going to do now, $20 is what it costs. So I haven't seen any $20 questions today. This is probably the longest we've gone into a show without a $20 question. So I think you guys all spent out from the very generous super chats we've had in the past. But $20 questions get priority. Don't forget, again, to like the show before you leave. Don't forget to use the super chat to ask questions and support the show. We're $350 short of the $400 goal, which we have for every show. We've got a ton of $5 questions, which I think is it's great. It's great to have as many questions as you guys do, but it would be nice if we had a few $20 questions. Anyway, let's go on to this other question. So I'm reading this article, and I guess a series of articles that were published about, so what's going on with Republicans? There are kind of two theories right now in the attempt to try to explain the Republican Party, the new right, and the new right being kind of the real anti-capitalist right, the things that I've talked about, the nationalist conservatives, the trad cons, the Catholic conservatives, who all are basically arguing that the Republican Party should move away from what they call libertarian ideas with regard to economics. So when the Republican Party was out of a free market in its approach to markets, I don't know, but, well, maybe lip service was given to that view by people like Paul Ryan. They want to move completely away from that, and they want a bigger role for government. And indeed, their view is the only way to win is to embrace statism. And win for them is not about economics. Win for them is all about the cultural war. Win for them is all about tradition, common good, public interest, gay marriage, abortion. It's all about the cultural issues. They've given up on capitalism. They've given up on freedom. And what they want now, what they're committed to now, is family, getting back to traditional values. So these trad cons, this new right, is committed to giving up on economic freedom and orienting the Republican Party and orienting the whole party towards the cultural war. And to do that, they want to grow the state. They want to increase the power of the state so that they can use the state just like the Democrats do to achieve their goals. So this is how they view the world today. There's left and right, they view it as, and I think they're right. Left and right are both going to be statist. The real disagreement between left and right is not about the role of the state. The real disagreement between left and right is how to use the power of the state to achieve their cultural values. So the right would like to use the role of the state, for example, to encourage the formation of families, to discourage divorce, to discourage single families, single parenthood, to discourage behavior they don't like, LGBTQ or whatever. The right would like to use the role of government to strengthen what they call communities, to strengthen religion, to strengthen what they think is culture, their culture. I mean, I think a big part of this was something Trump signed and was just reversed by Biden. For example, this is the kind of thing they really think is important. They want to get, for example, classic architecture back. They don't like this modern stuff. This modern stuff, they want classic architecture. That is important to them. But the classic architecture is traditional. It's American. It's the past. It's solid, and it inculcates, when people observe classical architecture, it inculcates a culture of God and country and family, which are the three most important things to them. So the argument that these articles was making is that the question is, are Republicans voters? Are they free market and kind of libertarian in spirit and want to be left alone? And the Republican elites are now shifting towards this new right, towards this statist position. Or is it the reverse, where the Republican elites are the more libertarian, free market, don't step on me, and the masses are much more interested in the cultural issues and much more interested in statism, using statism to achieve their goals. And this is kind of an argument going on within kind of conservatives, among conservatives and libertarians. What is actually going on in the Republican Party? And one of the articles made a point that I thought was, I don't think he made it in a positive way, or in the way I would make it, but he made the point which I thought was absolutely right. He made the point is you can't have your cake and eat it too. And the point he made was that capitalism inherently is anti-tradition. It's anti-traditional values in the sense that the whole point of capitalism is giving individuals freedom to choose their own values, respecting that freedom and backing off. The whole point of capitalism is trusting individuals to live their life as they see fit, based on their own values, based on their own mind, based on their own reason. Not trying to dictate to them what is right and what is wrong, how they should and shouldn't live, where they should and shouldn't work, how many kids they should or shouldn't have. One of the things Republicans would love to do is create some kind of way to subsidize having kids, because they're very worried about demographics. That capitalism is the exact opposite of that. That capitalism leaves people free to choose. And this is, of course, the great virtue of capitalism. But if it turns out that people under capitalism are choosing values that you don't like, i.e., they're not choosing traditional Christian values, they're not choosing, I don't know, stagnation, old communities, sitting on their porch in the afternoon. They're choosing to work hard, move, create, build. Then you have to abandon capitalism. And that the conflict here, fundamentally within the Republican Party, is a conflict between tradition, the conservative values, the values of religion, the values of what is tradition? Tradition is a harkening back and a respect for what was. Ayn Rand very much called this she talks about this in the divine right for stagnation. It's a fear of the new. It's a fear of moving forward. Now, it is true that under capitalism, because people are free, they can choose bad values, they can choose wrong values, and they can screw up their lives. And that's what most of these new right figures are saying. Look, individualism leads to nihilism. Individualism leads to hedonism. No. But that's because there is no voice right now for individualism, for values of individualism. Right? If you want to ask me a question, the way to do it is through Super Chat. Don't repeat the question over and over and over again. in the chat. It's just disruptive. It's just trolling, and I'm not going to answer it anyway because it's not in the super chat. So the conflict is a conflict inherent in what used to be conceived of as the conservative movement. The conflict is between free markets, between capitalism, where you cannot control the culture. Because capitalism is not just an economic system. Capitalism is the principle by which people are left alone, where government protects their rights and leaves them alone otherwise. It's the principle that individuals make decisions for themselves, based on their own mind, based on their own values. That the government doesn't get involved in trying to shape those decisions. It leaves them alone. And yet, Republicans want us all to have their religious, conservative value system. And many, if not most Americans, have rejected that. And what Republicans and conservatives are coming to grips with is if they have to choose between their values, their moral values, their cultural values, and capitalism and free markets, they have to choose their values. And they must reject capitalism. They have to ignore capitalism. You'd think there'd be a bunch of Europeans here today because we did it early, and you'd think they'd be supporting the show with Super Chat. We'll see. Okay, don't forget, we're at 125 live views, only 65 likes, so please like the show before you leave. Don't forget to use the Super Chat. $20 will get you quick response. All right, now, I thought about all this whole monologue, everything I've been saying, and planned on it. And then Christian sent me this video by Lauren Southern, where she basically says capitalism is no good. Capitalism is a real problem. She titled the video, as you can see, a conservative critique of capitalism. Now I'm going to start in the middle because it's long, it's 16 minutes, and you know I comment so much that it gets out of hand. So if I started too early. So the first critique of capitalism she had was big corporations and they lobby and they control too much. So the typical conservative attack on big business. We talked about that. It's kind of boring. It's over and over again. They don't understand that the source of the political power of business is government. Take away the power of politicians over corporations, and the corporations stop lobbying. Right? So we're going to start with a second critique of capitalism, which I think is a more interesting one, the more powerful one, because I think ultimately they oppose big corporations because they're part of this. And that is the fact that capitalism, according to Lawrence Summers, and I think according to many conservatives today, is responsible for the destruction of community and culture. Again, I picked Lawrence Summers by accident because this is the video I got. But I think this is a conventional view. This is Josh Hawley. This is Ted Cruz. This is now mainstream. Certainly, it's the people who support Donald Trump. This is now mainstream republicanism, mainstream conservatism. Not the old conservatives, the new conservatives. They think this is even a conservative who I like, who's anti-Trump, Andrew Sullivan, believes this. Capitalism is responsible for the destruction of community culture. It's responsible for the opioid epidemic. It's responsible for people losing their jobs and being depressed. Everybody from Andrew Sullivan to Josh Hawley to Ted Cruz to the people who support Trump today believe this. And if you think the conservatives are different, the only conservatives I know who don't believe this are the never Trump conservatives, the people like at the Dispatch. And even they, it depends which ones, but generally the Dispatch conservatives are better. They're much more committed to free markets, and they understand that if they're going to win the cultural battle, they have to win it through argument, not through the use of government to do it. So let's, let me put my headphones on. Let's watch a little bit of Lawrence Suthers. I've got two segments I want to show you. Both are important. Okay, and I haven't listened to the whole thing. So you're going to get, in some cases, in most cases, you're going to get my initial responses because I haven't listened to this whole segment.
And that is capitalism's destruction of community and culture. I often see many on the right lamenting the loss of old traditional architecture, community, family, and art.
Notice architecture. I told you before, right? This is that thing that Trump passed where the government has to build classical architecture. I don't lament that we've lost old architecture. Good riddance. It belonged in Greece and Rome. Read the Fountainhead if you missed that.
And yet at the same time proposing capitalism as a solution. It's not. Not even a little bit. Capitalism has no incentive to preserve our culture or communities, and in fact, I'd argue, has negatively impacted families. I think where this confusion comes in is some people observe that Marxism works in opposition to capitalism and to deconstruct the nuclear family, and assume, therefore, capitalism must be working to oppose Marxism and to support the family. But capitalism is not Marxism's counter. It came about before Marxism and is therefore indifferent to it. It's simply an alternate system. And while that system can certainly bolster some people's family lives and wealth and material goods, capitalism only moderates for the markets.
Capitalism bolsters some people's well-being, some people's wealth. How did we get the world that we have today? Where did it come from? What's really fascinating about this is the original critiques of capitalism, the first critiques of capitalism, even before Marx, and really simultaneous to Marx, throughout the early to mid to late 19th century. The strongest critiques of capitalism came out of Germany. They came out of conservatives in Germany, traditionalists in Germany. He bemoaned the growth of cities, bemoaned the loss of communities, bemoaned the industrialization, the loss of farming, the move to industry, bemoaned the loss of those old-style kind of conventional jobs in little shops. That was 200, 150, 200 years ago. Conservatives are still bemoaning exactly the same thing. It helps some people. Sorry, Lawrence Summers, you wouldn't be alive if not for capitalism. Or it's unlikely you would be alive if not for capitalism. Lauren Southern is her name. Neither would most of the people on planet Earth. If you look at the wealth, all the wealth we have today is a consequence of that capitalism. This idea that capitalism helps some but not others is complete nonsense. No, it doesn't help everybody equally, in a sense that not everybody creates as much wealth equally. But it's the only system in human history that has allowed individuals to create wealth for themselves, and as a consequence, increase the wealth of everybody dramatically in unimaginable quantities. So yeah, it is the alternative system to Marxism. It's also the alternative system to your mixed economy. It's an alternative system to pretty much every system out there. It is capitalism that has ended, Jennifer says, ended child labor, but more than that, it ended the subjugation of women. It ended slavery. But this is the thing. One of the things that conservatives so object to capitalism. You know what else it did? You know what capitalism else did? It destroyed the family. Why did it destroy the family? Well, it didn't destroy the family, but it destroyed the male-centric family in a traditional sense. Because capitalism created opportunities for women to work, for women to use their minds instead of their muscles, and therefore make as much money, if not more, than men. It provides opportunity for women to excel. It provides opportunity for Dagny to run a railroad, Dagny Taggart, and her equivalent. It takes women out of the house for the first time in human history and into the labor force as equals of men. Now that pisses off all the incels and men going their own way and the BAP, longing for a Bronze Age where women knew their role and their place. It scares the bejesus out of them, of those unmasculine, fearful, weak, pathetic men who are afraid to match themselves up with a strong woman who actually can work, make a living. But that's capitalism. Capitalism made that possible, and that's another reason they hate capitalism, of what it's done to women. It's liberated them and freed them. So this issue of women's role in society came up in the article that I was reading, and how this really upsets many conservatives who want, particularly the new conservatives, the new right, who want to see women put back where they belong. Men don't want masculine women. Maybe, but men should want strong women. Men should want productive women. Men should want women who use their minds to create wealth. Men should want talented women. Otherwise, you're a man with no self-esteem. You're not a masculine man. You're nothing. It doesn't mean you're feminine, but you're nothing. Anyway. Women have detached themselves from traditional roles, and many men hate that, and many conservatives hate that. It upsets them. It drives them nuts. And capitalism did it. You're not masculine if you don't want a strong woman. You're not masculine if you don't want a productive woman, because you're afraid of being outmatched. That's not masculine. That's pathetic. That's weak. A masculine man is not afraid of any woman.
Not for the souls and well-being of its workers. There is a reason to...
Capitalism doesn't care about the souls of the well-being of the workers. And she is trying to fight Marx?
Capitalism talk about how people can't eat in communist societies, because capitalism is really, really good at creating surpluses of goods for physical needs. But does it serve, your safety needs?
Does it serve your safety needs? I wonder if capitalism serves your safety needs. It's interesting that under capitalism, life expectancy has expanded dramatically. It's interesting that, for example, because of capitalism, our buildings can sustain hurricanes, tornadoes. Because of capitalism, we have unbelievably safe airplanes, automobiles. Of course, capitalism provides your safety needs. Now, true, not safety from other people, from their violence. For that, we need government. But the more important daily kind of forms of safety, that's exactly what capitalism provides for.
Not really. Your financial security can be wiped away any minute by the stock market.
This is unbelievable. the lack of ability to think, your financial security. Where did you get finance to begin with? Where did the money come from? If you have more financial security where you're a subsistence farmer, where's the financial security then when you don't know if you'll be able to sell your harvest? Really? Capitalism is the only system where you have any kind of financial security, and it's only to the extent that even welfare societies allow for some capitalism, some private property, some free markets, that wealth is created, and then you might lose it. But first you have to create the wealth. It's just like the left. They assume that wealth is just here. They assume that wealth is just created no matter what. It just comes into being. It's shocking the level of unthinking on left and right.
Does it serve needs relating to love and belonging? No.
Yeah, it's no accident, by the way, that the idea of romantic love is an idea coming out of the 18th and 19th century. The idea that one should choose one's wife, that love should guide one's choice, that marriage is not deal-making, marriage is not about economics. And what made that possible? That not just the wealthy could choose their wives, but everybody could choose their wives free of economic implications. The wealth that capitalism made possible. Love, in many respects, romantic love in particular, is made possible through the time that capitalism buys you, the wealth that capitalism buys you, and much more importantly, the focus on individualism that it is at the heart of capitalism. These are conservatives.
Because having a wife or a husband, and definitely kids, is a drain on your productivity and resources. And anyway, in this culture, apparently it's irrational to limit yourself to just one person. Might as well just use Tinder and count yourself lucky to live in a free society, you prude.
That's what they really hate, right? The fact that people actually have sexual relationships outside of marriage, that they experiment, that they explore, that they do all kinds of stuff, that pisses them off. It goes against their tradition. It goes against their moral code that they inherited through tradition.
Does it serve needs related to esteem? Does anyone feel esteemed in an assembly line or in a job where their boss treats them like they should be grateful the company has room in the budget for free coffee?
Notice that, again, she views esteem as something that comes from the outside. Esteem is something you grant yourself. Esteem is something you grant yourself exactly on the assembly line. Esteem, and notice the assembly line. How many people today actually work in an assembly line? Esteem is something you grant yourself based on your productive ability, based on your ability to put food on the table, based on your ability to produce and create and build. These people are needed as allies? Really? Allies towards what end? Towards what end? What are they going to get you? Bigger government, more government intervention, and now they want government to intervene to rule your life, to rule the moral decisions, the cultural decisions, the personal decisions that you make, and they're allies? No, thank you.
Does it serve needs relating to self-actualization?
It's the only system where self-actualization is actually possible. Except for the very elites who under the systems can self-actualize to some extent. But it's the only system that allows everybody, including the masses, to self-actualize. Now notice, This is straight out of Marx. Marx is the one who complains about the worker not being able to self-actualize. In his Marxist utopia, in his communist utopia, all your material needs are taken care of by the state, and you can self-actualize. But it's exactly capitalism that makes it possible, even for the common person, to create so much wealth that they can indeed self-actualize, that they can have hobbies, that they can pursue their personal values. What does it mean if she's critiquing capitalism? She wants the state to intervene so that culture and community don't deteriorate in the way she's reflecting. When she complains about capitalism destroying architecture, what is the alternative to that? What is she proposing implicitly as the solution to that? Well, we need to move away from capitalism, which is what? Towards more statism. That's the only alternative to capitalism, which means state intervention, state control, state regulation. She's not arguing for, oh, we should have more robust debate. We should argue for. When culture and community, I don't care about communities. Communities deteriorate all the time in some places, and they thrive in other places. What happens when culture deteriorates is you have to fight for a better culture. But a better culture is not a culture of classical architecture. A better culture is not a culture in which women stay at home. A better culture is not a culture in which we're sexually prudes. Those are not things that reflect a better culture. Those reflect a traditionalist culture, a religious culture, but not better. Better by whose standards? And the reason community and culture might deteriorate, the reason why community and culture deteriorate is because of bad ideas, not because of the state, or not, the solution is not the state. Because it's often because of the state, because of the ideas that lead to a bigger state. The battle for a better culture is an intellectual battle. It's a philosophical battle. It's an aesthetic battle. It's not a political battle. Other than, unless that political battle is a battle for more freedom. More freedom to make choices. But that's exactly what she's arguing against. She doesn't want you to have more freedom because you are making the wrong choices. A cultural revolution would be great if it was intellectual. It would be horrific if it used the force of government to implement it. That is what Mao Zedong did, and what I think many on the left and on the right today would like to do. Use government to impose a particular culture. That's what she wants on the right, and that's what the woke culture wants to do on the left. Freedom is the absence of coercion. Freedom is the absence of coercion. Freedom is the ability to pursue your values, your rational values, the values that are necessary for your pursuit of happiness, free of people coercing you. That includes government, that includes the neighbor, that includes conservatives, that includes communists.
You try self-actualizing in a gig economy, or in a world where you can lose your job the instant you self-actualize in a way that Twitter doesn't like.
It's exactly what the gig economy allows people. You can afford to sit there and complain, but the fact is the gig economy is exactly what allows some people to self-actualize. It provides them with the income, the flexibility, so maybe they can take care of their kids and work when it's convenient for them. Maybe they can go to school and work when it's convenient for them. You can make fun of that, but that's exactly what self-actualization looks like.
Also, on a side note, Marxism may have told women that being wives and mothers was shameful, but it was capitalism that broadcast that message so that all of those women would enter the workforce and drive down the wages of their husbands and sons.
Oh, that is such nonsense. Oh my God. Women don't drive down the wages. New people entering the workforce doesn't drive down wages. This is like Econ 101. This is the kind of ignorance that conservatives suffer from. New entrants into the workforce increase other people's wages because they increase productivity, they increase options, they increase possibilities. There's all the evidence in the world. Just open your eyes to see the wages standard of living has not gone down as women have come into the workforce. It's gone up. I'm sorry, I didn't know this would be as bad as it is because I didn't listen to it in advance. I should have. It is shocking, shockingly ignorant to talk about women entering the workplace reducing wages. When the labor pool increases, wages do not decline. I mean, there's a gazillion amounts of evidence for this. It means there are more producers, more consumers. If you have a bigger generation, like the boomer generation, did that cause wages to go down or up? Up. When you have immigrant societies like the United States, say the 19th century, where immigration was far greater than the number of people who were present here on a ratio basis, largest immigration ever, did wages go down or up? Way up. Because you bring in new ideas, new opportunities, new entrepreneurs. And it's not just labor increases, it's productivity, production increases. People becoming more productive. Now, it's true. You produce more, prices might go down, standard of living goes up, up, up. I mean, the lengths to which conservatives will go to get women back into the kitchen. Unbelievable.
Seriously, can we really say that it's all just government systems that have ruined our happiness?
And by the way, how did capitalism broadcast that women should be out of the home? You'd argue the opposite. The entire marketing campaign of capitalism was to sell, kitchen stuff and all this stuff. Yeah, but I guess capitalism made it possible to run a house part-time because dishwashers reduced the amount of time we spent washing dishes. Dryers and washing machines reduced the amount of time women had to spend with laundry. Pre-prepared meals meant that women had to spend less time cooking. Now, anybody who thinks all of that is a bad thing, that we should go to an era where we have no washing machines, an era with no dishwashers, an era with no pre-prepared meals or restaurants or whatever, that's barbarism. And in this sense, the right is just as barbaric as the left. Is this any better than the leftists? Yeah, labor-saving devices, but Linda, it's bad because it's labor-saving devices for women, and we want women to stay in the home, so we have to increase the amount of labor they have to do in the home. Oh my God, and then we've got Matt T. Cat, who is the attitude towards women that some of you guys express is truly disgusting and truly despicable. And I hope that the people expressing that do not count themselves as Ayn Rand fans as objectivists, because Ayn Rand would be horrified by these kind of views of women that are being expressed on my chat.
Or perhaps could some of us admit our work life, addiction to media, obsession with pursuing the next shiny product, the constant demands that we buy things to look a certain way, feel a certain way, watch this.
She's talking. Look how much makeup she's got on her.
Play that, drink this, eat that. Could it perhaps be this mass consumerism and work-life imbalance that has also ripped us from our family, community, and loved ones and ourselves?
And maybe this mass consumerism is not a consequence of capitalism. The shallow silly mass consumerism. It's improved the lives. Maybe the ugly part of mass consumerism is really truly a consequence of the fact that conservatives have not offered a value system to people to live their lives. Indeed, maybe it's because the value system that conservatives, that religion has provided people is so shallow and dull and inappropriate for modern life and inappropriate for a higher standard of living. That's why culture has collapsed. That's why people go with shallow consumerism. Maybe if instead of focusing on attacking capitalism, instead of focusing on latching on to a tradition that is no longer relevant, latching on to a time where life was short, brutish, horrible, instead of that, conservatives would have focused on coming up with a better value system, a modern value system appropriate to a free people, a value system appropriate to a wealthy people, a value system appropriate for people who have time. Maybe if they'd embraced Ayn Rand's value system, maybe if William F. Buckley, instead of kicking Ayn Rand out of the conservative movement, had embraced at least some of her ideas. Not on free markets, but on values. Maybe the world would look very, very different. Maybe instead of looking backwards, instead of trying to conserve, what is necessary is to look forward and to innovate. Innovate in ethics. Innovate in values. Innovate in human relations. What Ayn Rand did and what we're trying to do with Yuan's Rules for Life. Don't forget, we're going to have that later this week. We're going to do Yuan's Rules for Life, and there'll be a series of shows on this. Hopefully, you guys will listen in and enjoy, and I think we're going to get a sponsor for it, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. That's what we need. We need new rules for life that are appropriate for a wealthy culture, a wealthy society, a society with actual time on its hands.
In many ways as well. What Hannah Arendt called the vita activa, a state where we must always be busy, never present, and always consuming. It's just soul-destroying. And even if we move on to other factors leading to cultural decay, such as mass immigration with no assimilation, that too has largely been pushed and supported by corporations looking for cheap labor.
Really? So mass immigration was pushed on by corporations before there was such a thing as a corporation, for example, in the 19th century. So if there were no corporations, there wouldn't be mass immigration. People wouldn't want to come to the freest, the best, the richest country where there are more opportunities than others. Why do conservatives blame mass immigration on corporations? Why do they need to do that? And no assimilation? Capitalism is the greatest assimilating machine ever known to man. We saw that 19th century, early 20th century America, where people were assimilated into a society in numbers that are unbelievable. But no, everything is capitalism's fault, just like the leftists. Everything bad in the world happens because of corporations, just like the leftists. What's the difference anymore, guys?
As for old architecture, the utility of a building being nice relative to its price just doesn't add up.
Have you seen anybody been to Hong Kong or to Shanghai and the beauty of modern architecture? Have you ever seen a Frank Lloyd Wright home? I mean, because it's old, it's beautiful? Give me a break.
Tell me there's not a demand for beautiful buildings when people
There
are
is.
flying
They're called
halfway
modern
across the
architecture.
world just to take pictures with them. The problem is that the demand clearly doesn't lead to enough profit.
No, there's no demand for boring architecture. There's no demand for architecture we've already seen before. There's no demand for the second-handed.
Individual joy of the citizenry in daily life is not a business.
By the way, Ken says Yaron cherry picks the weakest conservative to represent the whole group. This was sent to me by somebody else, so I barely picked up. But Lawrence Summers was a favorite of the new right for a long, long time. But you're right. Maybe she is particularly weak, and I need better opposition. So here's the thing. You guys pick. Send me who you want me to confront. Send me who you think I should be critiquing on the right. Send me who you think better represents conservatives. Because I think she represents them perfectly. I think she does it exactly this way. So go for it. Find somebody better than Lawrence Southern to represent the conservative point of view. I'll take them on. Believe me, I'm not afraid of conservatives. I'm not afraid to defend capitalism in front of Marxists or conservatives.
This is in large part why the left have won the culture war. They didn't care that their arts degrees weren't particularly profitable, they just wanted to create art. And sure, I'm conceding ground to progressives in some regard, but I'm also not going to sit here and pretend that you can eat an art degree or that it was the arts that doubled our average lifespan. That was absolutely innovation pushed by commercial interests and capitalism. But the question still arises, what is the point of a long lifespan if increasingly people aren't wanting to live said life?
Really? Did she just say that?
Ultimately, we cannot understate how consumerism makes surviving insultingly easy, but we must also acknowledge it makes living insultingly hard.
No, it doesn't. It makes living easy if you choose your values, if you choose your personal values. Capitalism makes it possible for you to pursue those values.
Now, the last one here, number 3. Capitalism is indifferent to morality.
Capitalism is indifferent to morality. Really? Isn't there moral code embedded in the very nature of capitalism? Isn't there a particular attitude, a particular view of the world embedded in capitalism? A view of the world that is individualistic. That's what you resent. But yes, if you mean by morality altruism, then capitalism and altruism clash. They don't fit. So we're going to listen to a couple of minutes here, and then we're going to go on because it is getting late and I have some.
Capitalism is not a conservative view of the world.
True. Capitalism is not a conservative view of the world. Finally, she says something true. Capitalism is about new. Capitalism is about different. Capitalism is about innovation. Capitalism is about change. Capitalism is about the future, not the past. Capitalism is about building, not destroying. It's about creating new stuff, not old architecture. It's about modern architecture, modern in the proper sense of modern, everything. Capitalism is not about tradition. It's not about the old. It's not about conserving. Capitalism is about Uber replacing taxis. Conservatism is about keeping taxis. Capitalism is about iPhone 13 replacing 12, replacing my old flip phone, replacing my dial phone. That's capitalism. Yes.
It's not a political view at all, really. It's simply a tool which sways towards the highest bidder. If you live in a culture that is deeply sickened, the products that are both created and sold will sicken with it. They won't save it. They won't pull you out of your moral darkness. Capitalism just amplifies what we as humans desire in our hearts.
That's right. And if you desire the wrong things, and if you have the wrong values, which is true of the conservatives, then capitalism would only amplify that and make the culture more sick and make the culture more decayed. If you stick to your religious values, values that are outdated or irrelevant, values that are anti-life in many respects, then what you get is a sick, dying, decaying, destroyed culture. What you need is to embrace a modern world. What you need is to use your reason to question those old values. Right? That's what is needed. What's needed is to bring reason into the equation. What's needed is to reject the values that are destroying this culture. And those values are the values of altruism, the values of collectivism, the values of tradition, the values where you're stuck in the past instead of discovering new values, better values, values that are pro-life, pro-human, pro-freedom, pro-achievement, pro-building. But that's what the traditionalists, that's what the conservatives don't want. And now, the latest evolution in this is that they want to use the state to impose their value system because they've lost the cultural wars. They've lost the culture. And they know they've lost the culture. And their conclusion is that freedom doesn't work for them. Thank you, no. That's very, very much appreciated. Freedom doesn't work for them because under freedom, or their perception of freedom, their perception of capitalism, they've lost the cultural war. And therefore what they need is to use force in order to win it. What they need is to abandon freedom and to embrace statism and embrace the role of government in defining and defending cultural values. The only way to defend a traditionalist value system, they believe, is by use of force. It's with the use of the state. And here's how we get to where the left and the right are the same. They both want to use the state to force their values on all of us. They both reject freedom. They both reject capitalism. We have to accept the fact that to the extent that we advocate for freedom, advocate for individualism, advocate for reason, we are the tiniest of minorities. We're a small group of fighters. And when we ally ourselves with the people who would like to destroy us, we do ourselves no favors. When we allow ourselves with the statists, we grant them sanction they do not deserve. And we weaken our position, and we weaken our ability to fight. So we, all of us, need to stick to our guns, stop compromising, stop selling out to these conservative wimps, and fight. Fight for freedom, fight for individualism, fight for egoism, fight for human reason. All right, let's, thank you, Pietro. Let's do some of the super chats. I don't think any were $20 that I have right now, so we'll just take them in the order they were received. All right, thanks for the Rules of Life show. There'll be more of those. It was really inspiring. What's the name of the painting behind you with the man looking at the canvas with the smokestacks in the background? I don't remember the name of the painting, but you can find it on Quinn Corder's gallery. So if you look at Quinn Corder, and somebody on the chat is going to remind me of what the artist's name is, but Brian Lawson is the name of the artist. I keep forgetting it. For some reason, that name won't stick. But Brian Lawson is the artist. And if you go to Corday Gallery, Quint Corday Gallery, you can find the name of this painting. And he's got lots of others that you might enjoy. So in the chat, somebody's put down, the way you spell the name is Quint, Q-U-E-N-T, Cordair, C-O-R-D-A-I-R. Q-U-E-N-T, C-O-R-D-A-I-R. And you just put that in Google. There's only one Quint Cordair, I think, out there. Certainly only one Quint Cordair gallery out there, and you can find it. Further to Malice's point to you, why do you think a person expressing appreciation or admiration for another is automatically accused of, I can't pronounce the word, anyway, I can't pronounce it. Sycophancy? Anyway, sorry. It's one of those words in English that I can't quite bring myself to pronounce. Sycophant, being a sycophant. Because we live in a culture that does not believe in kind of moral judgment, good or bad. We're not supposed to morally judge others. We're supposed to just accept everybody as they are. And you're considered bad for saying somebody or something is immoral. Somebody is acting immorally. Right? And you're considered a sycophant if you praise somebody. You're trying to brown nose them. No. Justice requires that we judge. This will be one of my Iran rules of life. Judge. And as Ayn Rand said, I think the New Testament says, judge and be ready to be judged. And judging means both good and bad. Judging means engaging in judging people both positively and negatively, and expressing that judgment, acting on that judgment, embracing and wanting to interact and wanting to trade with people who are good, condemning, and distancing oneself from people one evaluates as bad. And you see, justice is not a popular virtue. We're supposed to accept everybody the way they are. And if you're going to judge somebody, you judge them based on some altruistic basis that religion teaches you to judge, but judge only so much because ultimately only God can judge. So I think that's the reason. It's the fear of judgment and the lack of appreciation of the virtue and importance of justice, which again I'll talk about more in Iran's Rules for Life. Do you think some people are natural leaders and it's context they choose to express it that determines their morality? i.e., Steve Jobs had a very authoritarian management style. Do I believe people are natural leaders? No, I don't think they're natural leaders in a sense that they're born that way. I think some people develop the characteristics. I think you're a self-made soul. You develop your own characteristics either explicitly or implicitly. Either by default, you just absorb stuff and you don't think about it, or managed by the choices you make. But you develop a certain personality, you develop a certain skill set, you develop certain abilities that make you a leader. And that leadership is expressed in different ways. And Steve Jobs didn't really have a very authoritarian management style. Not really. If you read, for example, about Steve Jobs' time at Pixar, when he was the CEO of Pixar, he wasn't authoritarian at all. But even at Apple, while he got angry many times, while he demanded perfection, people changed his mind often. People challenged him often. They learned how to do it to be effective. There's massive disagreements and debates within Apple with Steve Jobs. He could have not been as successful as he was if he'd been authoritarian. So no, I don't think, but I think some leadership does manifest itself in authoritarianism. Certainly dictators, for example, right? They can be incredible. They could have great leadership skills manifest in authoritarianism. But to inspire people, to learn how to inspire people, what does leadership mean? It means inspiring people to achieve a particular goal. And the bigger the goal, the bigger leadership is required, right? And that can be done in a variety of different ways. But those skills are skills one develops. The skills one creates within oneself. Check out Thunder F00T's YouTube video about Navy UFO videos. They're birds. Nice piece of rational analysis in the midst of public hysteria. I mean, I wish they were UFOs. I think it would be so cool if I lived in an era we discovered there was life on other planets. I mean, I wish we could interact with a more advanced civilization. I think it would vindicate much of the philosophy I believe in. So I wish they were UFOs. So, but I'll look at those videos because it would be nice to see a rational analysis of anything. What is your position on the potential for inflation? What are your thoughts on the? These are a number of questions, but it is $25, so I'll give these priorities. But these are a number of different questions. What is your position on potential for inflation? This is connected with the non-$20 question that was coming up next. Have you seen the phenomenon of increasing lumber prices? How much do you think is Trump tariffs versus COVID disruption production? I think it probably has to do with tariffs. It has to do with COVID disruptions. But more than anything, I think it has to do with a frantic rush to build because of prices of real estate going up. And it has to do with inflation, inflationary forces in our economy that we're seeing right now. We're seeing Procter & Gamble declare that they're going to raise prices on consumer goods. We're seeing other companies saying that they're going to raise prices on different things. We're seeing significant inflationary pressures. Now, we'll see how they manifest themselves and how far they filter through the economy. But all this printing of money, all this stimulus, all this handing people checks, most of that money is sat on the sidelines. And now that it's entering the economy, it's going to have, it has the real potential for bringing about inflation. So I fear that we are, thank you, real Mr. Meatball. I appreciate that. So it's got to do with, so I do think inflation is likely to increase. How much? Hard to tell. And certainly the Fed stance about, there's no problem about inflation is only potentially going to increase inflation fears, inflation expectations, and therefore inflation itself. But lumber prices are more complex. I mean, suddenly, Trump's tariffs on lumber, which, by the way, were not on China. Everybody says when I mention Trump tariffs, they go, but it's China. No, this was not about China. This was about Canada. The evil Canadians. The evil Canadians. I don't think we're going to see mass inflation the way that Peter Schiff declares it in the collapse of the dollar. But I do think we're going to see inflation rise and potentially to levels that are uncomfortable for most people. All right. The other question as part of the super chat. What are your thoughts on the kibbutz? My father was raised on one around the founding of Israel and seems to have ingrained a large amount of collectivism in it. Yeah, I mean, the kibbutz is about the most collectivist society you can imagine. It's basically a little communist, it's not a little, it's a communist kind of structure, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Everybody has the same, particularly early on, I'd say until about 30, 40 years ago, the kibbutz was the most socialist entity one could find. It was, everybody had the same apartment. Everybody had the same television. Children didn't grow up with the parents. The children grew up in a children's home. And parents could go see them in the evening for a couple of hours. And taking care of the children was a job that rotated. All jobs rotated. There was no specialization. You constantly rotated through jobs. You didn't have a kitchen in your apartment because you were supposed to eat together with everybody else, collectivism. In every respect, the kibbutz was one of the most collectivistic institutions ever created, and it lasted longer than most other institutions, right? Collectivistic, socialist kind of institutions. I think it was horrific. It was horrible. I've talked about this in the past. It generated a social system in which people resented and hated each other. The able resented, the hardworking resented the people who didn't work hard. The weak people who didn't work hard resented the able because they were able and they were jealous of it. Everybody cheated. There was a lot of sleeping around in terms of cheating on one another. It's a very, very unhealthy system, and economically was a massive failure. The only reason it survived, economically, is because of government subsidies. Originally, at the founding of Israel, it was subsidized primarily by rich Jews from overseas. Later on, it was subsidized by the government itself. But the kibbutzim were never self-sustaining. And when they were required to be self-sustaining, when the government withdrew their financial support, the kibbutzim collapsed. And ultimately, the kibbutz landed up having to convert into basically a village with private property. And the socialism disappeared. So it was another failed experiment in socialism. And a one that didn't result in gory bloodshed, that just self-destroyed itself because it doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work. How much worse does the cancel culture left have to get before you stop spending equal time pouncing on conservatives and libertarians? It doesn't matter how bad it gets. I am going to go after the right. That's my shtick. You want somebody, there are plenty of people. There's no shortage of people going after cancel culture. There's a ton of material. It's like what do I have to add to Barry Weiss and what's his name? The guy, Lindsay, whatever. All these people go after cancel culture constantly. The stories are out there. You guys have them. I don't have that much to add. Right? What I have to add, what I have to contribute, is to differentiate objectivism from the movement you would like us to associate with, which is the right. I'm going to continue to go after conservatives and libertarians, not equal time, more time to going after conservatives and libertarians. Because to me, differentiating objectivism from our pseudo-pretend allies is right now more important than going after the left in superficial ways, because everybody goes after the left. It's all out there. What do I have to contribute? I'll do it when I think there's something particularly interesting, like I did it with the schools. Right? The backlash against the woke cultures in the private schools. But you've got everybody's going after the left. I want to make sure that by going after the left, you're not tempted by Tucker Carlson or by Lawrence Southern or by, a whole bunch of other conservatives. I am not focused on being anti-left. It's not my purpose in life. I am pro-objectivism. And I will do what I think is necessary to protect and preserve objectivism as a unique, radical view of the world, and to argue for a politics that is neither left nor right, a politics of individualism. And fine, you guys think the left is a greater danger, then you can listen to the million blogs and podcasts and YouTube channels that go after the left. Right? The left is dominant. The left dominates the culture. Absolute. Absolute. And everything I stand for is anti-left. When I criticize conservatives, I'm criticizing the left at the same time because they're so similar. But you see, nobody ever confuses me with a leftist. But they might confuse objectivism with the right. And I'm going to spend as much time as I deem necessary making clear that we are not the right, that the right is also the enemy. And that it is and that in many respects, there's no difference between left and right. So everything I just said about Lawrence Summers is applicable to the left. is applicable to my critique of the left. So when I'm critiquing the right, I'm also critiquing the left because it's the same arguments. Again, you want just somebody to critique the left. There are plenty of people out there. Go listen to Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin's, that's what he does. That's what he does now. Constant critique of the left. It's very easy to critique the left, and the critique is obvious once you understand even a little bit of the thing. I hate the left. The left is despicable. Everything about the left in the world today, particularly kind of the woke left, is despicable and ugly and horrible. What did I do yesterday? Didn't I do a whole thing about woke corporations? But you see, I can't do enough for you guys, because what offends you is not that I'm not critical of the left enough. What offends you, what really upsets you, is that I'm critical of the right, because you're not about individualism. You're not about reason. Many of you are of the right, and you don't want me to attack the right because I'm attacking you in a sense. Right? And of course, I mean the small minority of people on this chat who ask that kind of question and who promote the right. I'm not of the right, and I'm not going to be. Is Blake Scholl going to be the first real Howard Roark game changer? He could be. I mean, it will really depend on whether, like in the end, that the regulators allow it, right? Allow this massive innovation. But he certainly could be a game changer. The company is exciting, and he's an exciting entrepreneur to watch and to keep track of. Why do people believe the right are pro-freedom or pro-capitalist when their actions are completely the opposite? Successful marketing. I think because so many people are so focused on the negative. So many people are so focused on the evil of the left. And the fact is that many people are not offended by the left's economics. People are offended by the left's cultural values. And they view the right as an ally in attacking that, and they are forgiving and hand-waving when it comes to the economic side. So they're clearly not pro-capitalist or pro-freedom. There's no question about that. Wow, Brian, thank you. Really appreciate that support. Thank you. So it really is bewildering that people who've read Ayn Rand would associate themselves with the right. And after what she wrote about conservatism, remember that in the late 60s, she wrote that the conservative movement was impotent and futile and empty. And she was massively critical of the conservative movements in the late 60s, never mind what she would think of them today. And again, remember, she didn't vote for Ronald Reagan. Frank says Bill O'Reilly has a radio show against the left. Yeah, I mean, they all do. That's their shtick. Their shtick is to be anti-left. And you get a lot more followers if you're anti-left. So if I would have a lot more subscribers and a lot more followers if all I did was attack the left. But that's not my purpose in life. Right? All right. You can be pro-capitalist and agree with Lawrence Southern. That's my point. In the end, you can be pro-capitalist and be a conservative. And you can't believe that imposing your cultural values is somehow pro-capitalism. And I don't believe in Lawrence Southern's values either. I think the values are corrupt. So it's not like, yeah, on culture and values, I agree with the right. I don't. I don't agree with their obsession with family. I don't agree with their prudish attitude towards sex. I don't agree with their view of homosexuality. I don't agree with their view of religion. I don't agree with their view of architecture. I don't agree with their views of aesthetics. I don't agree with the left either. But on where is the parallel? Where is the overlap between me and the conservatives? Yes, Bill O'Reilly banned me from his show forever. There was a period where I was on his show on Fox pretty much every couple of months. And then he banned me forever. And if somebody wants to put $20 on it, I'll tell you why. All right, you spoke of the left cultural dominance coming from the activism. So when should we expect to start seeing objectivist activists? Well, you are seeing objectivist activists. Me, Alex Epstein, Ayn Rand Institute, you're seeing Don Watkins. It's a kind of intellectual activism. It's being out there and trying to change the world. Now, we need a lot more. When do we have enough to actually have an impact on the culture? I don't know. It's going to take some time. I'm hoping that in the next couple of decades, we see that. Right? So, all right. I'll give you an opportunity to ask a final question. If anybody wants to ask a question, I see questions in the chat, but I'll answer questions if you use the super chat. $2, $5. You can afford that, and you can get your question answered for sure. All right, everybody. Let's see. We will have a show tomorrow at 8 p.m. and a show on Wednesday and on Friday. So this week will be pretty full with questions. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday is the schedule for shows. 8 p.m. on each one of those days. There will not be a show next Saturday, so that's why I'm doing it on Friday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. No, I answered the one on malice. There was one question on malice, and I answered it. So I don't think I missed any questions. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. Press that button. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And hey, we're over 25,000, solidly over 25,000, which is great. Now, the next goal is 50. So buckle up. We have to get to 50,000 subscribers. Maybe if I attack the left more, if I just dedicated my show to attacking the left, we would get there. Sorry, can't do it. Can't do it. Bye, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you all